They tried to cut the quiet girl's hair. Big mistake. She's an underground street fighter. Sierra Martinez sat in the back corner of Jefferson High's cafeteria, methodically eating her peanut butter sandwich while keeping her eyes fixed on the worn pages of her chemistry textbook. At 17, she had perfected the art of invisibility. Her long, dark ponytail hung down her back like a curtain, partially concealing her face as she hunched over her studies. Most students barely noticed the quiet Latina girl who always wore oversized hoodies and kept to herself. What they didn't know was that Sierra had been fighting in underground street tournaments since she was 14. Her older brother Miguel had introduced her to the brutal world of bare-knuckle fighting after their father abandoned the family, leaving their mother to work 3 jobs just to keep food on the table. The money Sierra earned from winning fights helped pay rent and kept the lights on, but at school she was just another invisible face in the crowd. "Keep your head down, finish senior year, get out," she reminded herself daily. The last thing she needed was trouble that might jeopardize her carefully maintained double life. "Look at little mouse girl," came a familiar grating voice from behind her. Sierra's shoulders tensed as she recognized Brittany Walsh's voice. The blonde 17-year-old was Jefferson High's self-appointed Queen Bee, complete with her entourage of followers who hung on her every word, always hiding behind that greasy hair. Sierra continued reading, her jaw clenching slightly. She had learned long ago that engaging with Brittany only made things worse. The girl thrived on attention and conflict, and Sierra refused to give her either. "I'm talking to you, freak," Brittany said louder, her voice carrying across the cafeteria. Several students at nearby tables turned to watch, sensing drama brewing. "Don't you know it's rude to ignore people?" Brittany's best friend Madison Cooper giggled beside her, a sound like nails on a chalkboard. Madison was a tall, athletic girl who played volleyball and seemed to exist solely to validate Brittany's cruel behavior. "Maybe she doesn't speak English," Madison suggested with mock concern. The third member of their trio, Ashley Kim, remained silent but smirked as she filmed the interaction on her phone. Ashley was the group's social media manager, always ready to document their harassment for their followers' entertainment. Sierra slowly closed her textbook and gathered her things. She had 20 minutes left of lunch period, but staying would only escalate the situation. As she stood to leave, Brittany stepped directly into her path. "Where do you think you're going?" Brittany demanded, her perfectly manicured hands on her hips. "We're having a conversation here." "Excuse me," Sierra said quietly, trying to step around the blonde. Her voice carried a slight accent that her tormentors loved to mock. "Excuse me," Madison repeated in an exaggerated accent, causing several onlookers to snicker. "Did you guys hear that? So exotic." Sierra felt heat rising in her chest, a familiar sensation she had learned to control through years of fighting. In the ring, that heat was fuel. Here, it was dangerous. She took a deep breath and tried again to move past them. Brittany grabbed Sierra's backpack, yanking her backward. "I don't think so, mouse girl. You've been ignoring us for weeks, and that's just not acceptable." The cafeteria had grown quieter now, with more students turning to watch the confrontation. Sierra noticed Mr. Peterson, the math teacher on lunch duty, but he was engrossed in grading papers at the far end of the room, either oblivious or deliberately ignoring what was happening. "Please let me go," Sierra said, her voice steady despite the adrenaline beginning to course through her veins. "Don't engage, don't give them what they want." "Please let me go," Ashley mimicked, still recording. "God, you're pathetic. No wonder you don't have any friends." Sierra's hands clenched into fists at her sides, muscle memory from countless hours of training threatening to take over. She forced herself to relax. These weren't opponents in the ring, they were just spoiled teenagers who had never faced real consequences for their actions. "You know what your problem is?" Brittany continued, circling Sierra like a predator. You think you're better than everyone else, always studying, never talking to anyone. You probably think you're so smart. I just want to be left alone, Sierra replied, her dark eyes meeting Brittany's blue ones for the first time. There was something in Sierra's gaze that made Brittany hesitate for just a moment, but the blonde quickly recovered. Well, that's too bad, Brittany said, her voice rising, because I don't like being ignored, and I especially don't like stuck-up little immigrants who think they're too good for the rest of us. The word immigrant hung in the air like a slap. Sierra had been born in Phoenix, but her parents had immigrated from Mexico before she was born. The assumption that she was somehow less American than her tormentors was one that followed her everywhere. I'm not, Sierra began, but Madison cut her off. Save it, Madison said with a wave of her hand. We all know what you are. Sierra felt something snap inside her chest, but she forced herself to remain calm. 2 more months, just 2 more months until graduation. The harassment continued throughout the week. Brittany and her friends seemed to have made Sierra their new favorite target. They would accidentally bump into her in the hallways, causing her to drop her books. They would make loud comments about her appearance whenever she passed by. Ashley would film these encounters, posting them to social media with cruel captions that made Sierra's stomach churn. The worst part wasn't the harassment itself. Sierra had endured far worse in the fighting circuit. It was the way other students either joined in or simply looked away. Teachers who witnessed the behavior seemed to dismiss it as typical teenage drama, not worth their intervention. They have no idea, Sierra thought, as she dodged another accidental shoulder check from Madison in the hallway. They have no idea what I'm capable of. But she couldn't risk exposing her secret. The underground fighting scene was illegal, and any attention from school administrators might lead to questions she couldn't answer. Her mother had no idea how Sierra really earned the money that helped keep their family afloat, believing instead that Sierra had a part-time job at a local restaurant. The breaking point came on a Thursday afternoon in late October. Sierra was walking through the main hallway after her last class, eager to get home and prepare for a fight that weekend. The prize money would be enough to cover their rent for the next 2 months, and she needed to be in peak condition. Hey, mouse girl! Brittany's voice echoed through the hallway, causing several students to stop and watch. Sierra kept walking, hoping to make it to the exit before things escalated. But Brittany wasn't done. She jogged to catch up with Sierra, her designer heels clicking against the linoleum floor. Madison and Ashley flanked her, forming a wall that blocked Sierra's path to the door. I'm talking to you, Brittany said, slightly out of breath from her sprint. Don't you dare ignore me again. Sierra stopped walking and turned to face her tormentors. The hallway was crowded with students heading to after-school activities or waiting for rides home. She could feel dozens of eyes on them, phones already being pulled out to record whatever was about to happen. What do you want? Sierra asked quietly. What do I want? Brittany laughed, a harsh sound that echoed off the lockers. I want you to show some respect. I want you to acknowledge that you're nothing special, just another welfare case taking up space in our school. Sierra's jaw tightened, but she remained silent. She could see Mr. Harrison, the vice principal, at the far end of the hallway, but he was deep in conversation with a parent and hadn't noticed the confrontation brewing. You know what I think? Brittany continued, stepping closer to Sierra. I think you hide behind all that hair because you're ashamed of what you are. You're probably covered in gang tattoos or something equally trashy. That's not... Sierra started, but Ashley cut her off. Oh my God, I bet that's exactly it, Ashley said, still filming. That's why she never changes for gym class in front of anyone. She's probably covered in prison tattoos. Madison giggled. Or maybe she's just hideously ugly under all that hair. Like seriously, when was the last time you washed it? It looks like you dipped it in grease. Sierra felt her control beginning to slip. In the ring, she channeled her anger into devastating combinations that had earned her the nickname Silent Storm. Her opponents never saw her attacks coming because she fought with cold, calculated precision rather than wild emotion. But this wasn't the ring. These weren't opponents who had chosen to face her. They were just cruel teenagers who had no idea they were poking a sleeping tiger. "You want to know what I think?" Brittany said, reaching out to touch Sierra's ponytail. "I think all this hair is just a security blanket. I think you'd look much better with a nice shortcut." Sierra jerked away from Brittany's touch, her eyes flashing with warning. "Don't touch me. Don't touch me," Madison mimicked again. "What are you going to do about it, mouse girl? Tell your mommy." The crowd around them had grown larger, with students forming a loose circle to watch the drama unfold. Sierra could hear whispers and see phones recording from multiple angles. Whatever happened next would be all over social media within minutes. "I think she needs a makeover," Brittany announced loudly, playing to her audience. "Something more American." Sierra's blood ran cold as she saw Brittany reach into her designer purse and pull out a small pair of scissors. They were the kind used for crafts, with bright pink handles that matched Brittany's nail polish. "What are you doing?" Sierra asked, taking a step backward. "Giving you a new look," Brittany said with a cruel smile. "Trust me, you'll thank me later." The crowd pressed closer, sensing that something significant was about to happen. Sierra could hear students calling out encouragement to Brittany, treating the situation like entertainment rather than assault. "Put those away," Sierra said, her voice carrying a new edge that made several nearby students take notice. There was something different in her tone, something that didn't match her usual quiet demeanor. "Or what?" Brittany challenged, opening the scissors with a metallic snick that seemed to echo through the hallway. "You'll run away like you always do?" Sierra's hands began to shake, not from fear, but from the effort of restraining herself. Every instinct she had developed through years of fighting was screaming at her to act, to defend herself, to show these spoiled bullies what real consequences looked like. "Don't do it," she told herself. "Walk away, find another exit. Don't give them what they want." But as she turned to leave, Brittany grabbed her ponytail with one hand and raised the scissors with the other. "Hold still," Brittany commanded. "This will only take a second." The sound of the scissors closing on Sierra's hair was like a gunshot in the crowded hallway. Several students gasped as a thick section of dark hair fell to the floor, leaving Sierra with a jagged, uneven cut that exposed the back of her neck. For a moment, the hallway was completely silent. Even Brittany seemed surprised by what she had done, staring at the scissors in her hand as if she couldn't believe she had actually used them. Sierra reached back and touched the ruined remains of her ponytail, feeling the uneven strands that now barely reached her shoulders. The hair that had hidden her face, that had been part of her carefully constructed invisibility, was gone. They crossed the line, she thought, her vision beginning to narrow with focus. They actually crossed the line. When Sierra turned around, something in her posture had changed. Her shoulders were no longer hunched in defeat. Her head was no longer bowed in submission. She stood with the balanced stance of someone who had spent years learning how to hurt people efficiently and effectively. "You made a mistake," Sierra said quietly, her voice carrying clearly through the silent hallway. Brittany laughed nervously, suddenly aware that the dynamic had shifted in ways she didn't understand. "What are you going to do about it, freak? It's just hair. It'll grow back." Sierra took a step forward, and something in her movement made Brittany instinctively step back. It was the fluid, predatory motion of someone who knew exactly how to use their body as a weapon. "You want to know what I am?" Sierra asked, her dark eyes locked on Brittany's face. "You want to know what I've been hiding?" The crowd pressed closer, sensing that they were about to witness something extraordinary. Sierra could see confusion and the first hints of fear creeping into Brittany's expression. "I'm not hiding gang tattoos," Sierra continued, slowly pulling off her oversized hoodie to reveal a fitted black t-shirt underneath. Her arms were lean and muscled, with small scars on her knuckles that spoke of countless hours hitting heavy bags and harder opponents. "I'm not hiding anything ugly." She let the hoodie fall to the floor, and several students gasped at the transformation. Without the baggy clothing, Sierra's athletic build was obvious. Her shoulders were broad, her waist narrow, and her arms showed the kind of definition that came from serious training. "What I've been hiding," Sierra said, rolling her shoulders in a way that made her look twice as dangerous, "is that I'm a street fighter, and you just made the biggest mistake of your pathetic little life." Brittany's face went pale. "You're lying," she said, but her voice lacked conviction. "Am I?" Sierra asked, settling into a fighting stance that was unmistakably professional. Her feet were positioned perfectly, her hands raised in a guard that would have been familiar to anyone who knew combat sports. "You want to find out?" Madison grabbed Brittany's arm. "Come on, let's just go," she whispered urgently. "She's probably just trying to scare us." But Ashley, still filming, was too caught up in the drama to retreat. "You're all talk," she said to Sierra. "If you were really some kind of fighter, you would have done something before now." Sierra's smile was cold and predatory. "I was trying to be nice," she said. "I was trying to give you the chance to walk away and pretend this never happened. But you couldn't leave well enough alone, could you?" The crowd had grown to include nearly 50 students, with more arriving every moment as word spread through the school. Sierra could see teachers beginning to notice the commotion, but they were still too far away to intervene. "Last chance," Sierra said to Brittany. "Apologize, and we can pretend this never happened." Brittany's fear was quickly being replaced by anger and embarrassment. She was being humiliated in front of half the school by someone she had always considered beneath her. Her reputation as the Queen Bee was crumbling with every second she failed to respond to Sierra's challenge. "I'm not apologizing to some ghetto trash," Brittany snarled, raising the scissors again. "You think you scare me? You're nothing but a wannabe tough girl who's about to learn her place." She lunged forward with the scissors, aiming for Sierra's face in a wild, untrained attack that telegraphed itself from a mile away. Sierra moved like liquid lightning. She sidestepped Brittany's clumsy lunge, grabbed the blonde's wrist, and twisted until the scissors clattered to the floor. In the same fluid motion, she swept Brittany's legs and sent her crashing to the linoleum with an impact that echoed through the hallway. The crowd erupted in shocked gasps and excited shouts. Several students were recording from multiple angles, capturing every moment of Brittany's humiliation. "Stay down," Sierra warned, standing over her fallen tormentor. But Brittany, driven by rage and embarrassment, scrambled to her feet and charged again. This time, Sierra didn't hold back. She caught Brittany's wild swing, spun her around, and applied a chokehold that cut off the blonde's air supply without causing permanent damage. It was a technique she had learned from her brother, designed to subdue opponents quickly and efficiently. "I said stay down," Sierra repeated, as Brittany struggled weakly in her grip. "This is your last warning." Madison tried to help her friend, grabbing at Sierra's arms, but Sierra simply shifted her weight and sent Madison sprawling with a hip toss that would have made her judo instructor proud. Ashley finally stopped filming and tried to run, but Sierra caught her by the shoulder and spun her around. "Where are you going?" Sierra asked calmly. "You wanted to film this, right? You wanted content for your social media?" Ashley's face was white with terror. "Please," she whispered. "I'm sorry. I won't post anything. I'll delete it all." "No," Sierra said, her voice carrying clearly through the now silent hallway. "You're going to post it. You're going to show everyone exactly what happens when you mess with the wrong person." She released Ashley, who stumbled backward and nearly fell. Brittany was still on the ground, gasping for air and holding her throat where Sierra's chokehold had left red marks. "Here's what's going to happen," Sierra announced, addressing not just her 3 tormentors, but the entire crowd of students. The harassment stops now. The comments, the accidents, the social media posts, all of it ends today. She looked down at Brittany, who was slowly getting to her feet with Madison's help. You're going to leave me alone. You're going to leave everyone else alone. Because now you know what I'm capable of, and this was me being gentle. Brittany's perfect makeup was smeared, her designer clothes wrinkled and dirty. She looked nothing like the confident Queen Bee who had ruled Jefferson High's social hierarchy just minutes earlier. You can't do this, Brittany said weakly. I'll tell the principal. I'll have you expelled. Sierra laughed, a sound that held no humor. Go ahead. Tell them how you tried to assault me with scissors and got exactly what you deserved. I'm sure they'll be very sympathetic. She picked up her hoodie from the floor and slung it over her shoulder, no longer needing to hide behind baggy clothes. Tell them about the underground fighting. Tell them how I've been earning money to support my family while you've been playing dress-up with Daddy's credit card. The crowd began to disperse as teachers finally arrived on the scene, but the damage was already done. Videos of the confrontation were already spreading through social media, showing Brittany's humiliating defeat at the hands of the quiet girl she had tormented for months. Mr. Harrison, the vice principal, pushed through the remaining students. What's going on here? He demanded, looking at the scattered hair on the floor and Brittany's disheveled appearance. Nothing, Sierra said calmly, pulling her hoodie back on. Just a misunderstanding that's been resolved. Brittany opened her mouth to protest, but Ashley grabbed her arm and shook her head frantically. The last thing any of them wanted was for the administration to investigate what had really happened. Is that right, Miss Walsh? Mr. Harrison asked, looking skeptical. Brittany looked at Sierra, who was watching her with calm, dangerous eyes. The message was clear. Any attempt to get Sierra in trouble would result in far worse consequences than what had already happened. Yes, Brittany said quietly. Just a misunderstanding. Mr. Harrison looked between the two girls, clearly sensing that there was more to the story, but without any complaints from the students involved, there was little he could do. Well, clean up this mess, he said, gesturing to the hair on the floor, and I don't want to see any more misunderstandings in my hallway. As the administrator walked away, Sierra turned to face her former tormentors one last time. Remember what I said, she told them quietly. This ends now, and if you ever think about starting it again, remember how easily I could have hurt you today. Remember that I chose not to. She walked away, leaving Brittany, Madison, and Ashley to clean up the physical and social wreckage of their failed attempt at humiliation. Over the following weeks, the dynamics at Jefferson High shifted dramatically. The video of Sierra's confrontation with Brittany had gone viral within the school, earning her a reputation as someone not to be messed with. But more importantly, it had shown other students that bullies could be stopped, that victims didn't have to remain victims forever. Sierra found herself approached by other students who had been targets of harassment, asking for advice or simply thanking her for standing up to Brittany's crew. She began eating lunch with a small group of former outcasts who had formed their own support network. Brittany, meanwhile, found her social status in ruins. The video had shown her at her most vulnerable and cruel, and many students who had previously followed her lead began to distance themselves. Her attempts to rebuild her reputation only highlighted how hollow her previous power had been. 3 weeks after the confrontation, Sierra was surprised to find Brittany waiting by her locker after school. "What do you want?" Sierra asked, not unkindly but with clear wariness. "I wanted to apologize," Brittany said quietly. She looked different, less polished, more human. "What I did was wrong. All of it was wrong." Sierra studied her former tormentor's face, looking for signs of deception or manipulation. But Brittany's eyes held genuine remorse and something that might have been respect. "Why now?" Sierra asked. "Because I've had time to think about what kind of person I was becoming," Brittany replied. And because I realized that you could have really hurt me that day, but you didn't. You showed more restraint than I ever did. Sierra nodded slowly. Apology accepted, she said. But that doesn't mean we're friends. I know, Brittany said. I just wanted you to know that I'm sorry, and that I'm trying to be better. As Brittany walked away, Sierra reflected on how much had changed in just a few weeks. She no longer hid behind oversized clothes or kept her head down in the hallways. Her hair had been professionally cut and styled, shorter than before, but no longer a shield to hide behind. The underground fighting continued, but Sierra found herself fighting with a different mindset. The anger and desperation that had once fueled her in the ring had been replaced by a calm confidence that made her even more dangerous.